participate, offers tasks that address the assessment findings. And this is one of the things that we're going to be focusing on tonight is sharing the findings of the community risk assessment and the action plan, and then soliciting for input on these two sections of the CWPP.
And so where can you find all this information, right? Like, we're creating all these wonderful things and we have them in our office, but where can you as community members find them? Well, through this project, we created a website. It's called copperriverfirewise.org. Let me share it real quick, sorry. Okay, those of you that are online, can you see my screen?
Yep, we got it.
Awesome. So this is our website that we created. Here you can find all sorts of information that's pertinent to the Copper River Forestry Office itself. So we're going to use the CWPP by Community tab, and we're going to click on Chitina. Once you're here, you can read a little background. You can access the 2007 Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And if you keep scrolling down, here we are, we're advertising, we got the Zoom link, we have pictures from the past meetings, as well as past projects that have happened, a newspaper article. It all pertains to the past CWPP project. We also have a planning area map. So this is the map that we are soliciting information and input for at the last round of meetings. So the planning area boundary is clearly outlined here. There's a tab for our document, the document that's right in front of you for those of you that are sitting here. For those of you that are online, if you would not mind just logging in real quick to copperriverfirewise.org, going through, and you can also just click on this tab right here and it's going to pull up the document for you. We'll also put the website in the chat so you can directly click on there. And then we have a survey that we're going to loop back around to talk about this next survey. This is going to be soliciting input and information regarding this meeting that we're having right now. Past survey information is clearly outlined on the website as well, so you can go back and reference it and how we came up with a lot of what is in this plan itself. And you want to go over the map? Sure.
All right, I'm going to do a quick showcase of one of the tools that we have on this website. Also, it's a map app that we created off of GIS layers, made user-friendly so that anybody in the public can access this information and use it for planning or general information needs. I'm just going to give an overview of it, and there was a link to this map right on that Chitina page. Every community has a link to the same map. When it first opens up, it essentially shows the Copper River Basin area. Over to the right where you see the snowpack is where the Wrangell Mountains are. And what all the colored outlined areas on that map are the different community CWPP boundaries. There is a key to this map. So I'm clicking over, I'm not sure if online folks can see my mouse or not, but on the left-hand side tab, there's a little symbol that brings the key up to the map. So this color, the colors listed here show the CWPP planning area, boundaries. I'm going to go back to where the layers are. And then of course we can zoom in to the community of Chitina right here. Another feature that this map has is different base layers. The satellite imagery on here is really high quality. So when we're looking at areas of high fuel concentration, when I say fuel, vegetation concentration and that sort of thing, it zooms in really well, and we can look at the ground terrain as viewed from the satellite with pretty good imagery. However, when we go to select some of the other informational layers that you can obtain from this map, sometimes it's valuable to choose a different base map because the dark imagery interferes with the color. So I'll just go ahead and do that. So I just chose a topographic base layer. That was the next on the left-hand side toolbar. That was the next thing down. And then again, I'm going to go back to the layers. I'm going to zoom out. And I just want to do a quick overview of the layers that are available on here so that this tool can be utilized as fuel treatments. So now I'm looking down.
They can see.
Okay, so I guess you can see my mouse. So as I go down from the CWPP planning areas, there's a little eye that will turn these on or off. The next thing down is fuel treatments. As different fuel treatments get planned, or if we can get GIS files of past fuel treatments that have been done in the Chitina area, they can be added to this layer. The next thing is initial response fire management options. This is important to us as fire managers because it prioritizes initial attack of resources in our area, and it also helped guide how the CWPP boundaries were made. I'm clicking back over to the key and scrolling down a little bit so you can see this dark red color is what is a critical fire response management area, which means anything that's in critical is going to receive the highest priority of resources and protection, followed closely behind by what is in a full management option. And anything, this is what we would call our our wildland urban interface. It's often referred to as the WUI. These are the areas that we are focusing any of our fuel reductions and fire protection efforts within these areas. It's helpful to turn off the layers too. You wouldn't want to turn them all on. So the next two layers are different land ownership layers. This is also helpful for community planning to understand how land or what agencies are managing land. Again, you can go to the key and match the colors, or this is also selectable. So if I click on something, it's going to show up. What I just clicked on is managed by Otna Incorporated. If I come over here and click, we can see that this shows Chitina Native Corporation lands. One thing I do want to point out on here is the way these layers are stacked on the map is how they show up. So if I wanted to click something inside of the CWPP area, I actually need to turn off that outline because otherwise it's just going to tell me that it's the Chitina CWPP area. And then I can click on things in here and it'll tell me this is a native allotment. It has private land as well. And there we can see private land. So again, just another tool. There's two different layers for comparing. They're the same, but one's a BLM produced and one's a wildland fire jurisdiction land ownership map. The next two layers are vegetation layers. One of these layers we specially created for this project. It was based off of the land fire existing vegetation type, or EVT, which had satellite imagery of over, I would say 70 to 80 different vegetation types, which was a lot more complicated than what we needed because we're studying vegetation to correlate what sort of fire danger the vegetation presents in our community and out in the vicinity of our community. So we created off of this land fire existing vegetation layer, we created a hazard vegetation crossover layer. I'll turn it on. And basically it clumps the fuel types into their risk or their flammability or their fire danger in prime fire conditions. So instead of looking at a layer that has, like I said, over 80 different types of vegetation types that the colors are not super meaningful to us, we created this to show the fire danger, and anything that is red is going to constitute a high fire danger when those conditions exist. If not very high, those are the black spruce type forests. The orange colors are more of the white spruce forests or the mixed white spruce and hardwood forests. And then as we go down the color continuum, anything that's in yellow is still burnable vegetation in the right conditions, of course, but it is more of a brush component or your alder components and subalpine components that are less flammable. So again, this tool just helps us look at the vegetative fuels in the area and analyze their risk. We included large fire history on here. Again, you can see as you go down the McCarthy Road, some of these large fires that we've experienced within the last decade show up on this map. There's a lot of information embedded in these layers. You can click on the fire, and some of them should be able to tell you what year that fire was, the name of the fire. So for instance, this was a Lackinaw fire in 1948. These over here are more recent, but the idea is to be able to explore some of the large fires our region has experienced. Hopefully I'm not making any of you sick online driving. Again, to get out of this, I just click back on the layer tab over here. We also included small fires. These small fires are often the human-caused fires and the preventable fires that we can really make an impact on studying what the causes of these fires are and educating folks on how we can prevent these fires. So this is another valuable thing we can look at. Again, when you click on these dots, you might find out some information, or you can just click on the key tab and at least get the year range based off the color of the dot that they were in. And then the final thing that was included on this mapping application is it's a product produced again by Landfire, which is a mapping service. It's the fire interval for the area. In general, the Copper Basin area has a fire interval, and by fire interval, we mean a fire severe enough for a stand replacement fire. So stand replacement would be a severe fire that took out all the trees in that area that it affected, and it would have to totally regenerate. So again, going to the key, we can look at the color coding. We can see that the yellow colors are 70 to 80, 80 to 90. The designation we gave the Copper River Basin based off of this information was approximately every 80 to 100 years. Within our wildland urban interface or WUI corridors, there's potential for stand replacement fires every 80 to 100 years. You can also see though that varies by the terrain and the vegetation type. When you get up into some of these drainages or higher elevations, they regenerate by fire with a greater stand replacement interval. So in summary, this is the map tool that we created that is accessible to utilize. try to get it back to our imagery hybrid. This is, I definitely suggest using that as a useful tool. And we'll go back to our layers here. All right, so that's the overview. The only other thing we have here is basically a disclaimer of what this tool provides, is that the information on it. So again, this was created for the CWPP project to use in all our communities, and available to all of you to utilize as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenny. And it is, again, it's all on our website. So just go back there real quick and exploring the map right here. You just can right click, it'll open a new tab, and there you go. You got it going on. We really encourage you to check out our website. It's got all of the information, all of contacts if you need to get a hold of us, anything like that. It'll direct you to our Facebook, our YouTube, everything. So let's go over the document. We've been talking a lot about the CWPP. We've been making a document for the community here. For those of you that are here in the building, you can see it's right in front of you. For those that are online, I will pull it up.
If it's in your folders.
Amy, can you still see it online? My screen share? Oh, okay, it says it's been paused. I'm going to restart my screen share. Can you see it now, Jamie?
I can see it.
Awesome. All right, so here is our plan. We're just going to kind of walk through it. We have a recognition for our funding and our table of contents. So the table of contents, Jenny and I spent a lot of time reviewing. I think it's pertinent to say first off, there's no standard way of creating a CWPP in the state of Alaska. So Jenny and I are really trying hard to pave the way for that and decide what really needs to be in these plans. In order to do that, we read, I think, all of the plans for the state of Alaska that we have so far that are put out. So we took information that we thought was pertinent and also what needed to go into the plans for the national standards for a CWPP to be created. So these, the whole document overview. So we're going to quickly go through it, and keeping in mind that this meeting is to look at this document, but then we're going to dive deep into the community risk assessment and the action plan itself. So the executive summary, it's a justification and an overview for the CWPP for the community of Chitina. Then we get into the background, and the background provides information related to the overall goal of wildland fire protection and land management by both state and federal agencies. It references acts as well as land management policy and justification for funding. This section is still under review, so to promote readability. So if you guys get to this section and are really like, oh man, there's a lot of jargon in here, we are still working on it to make this a more user-friendly section for the community members themselves. And keeping in mind that this plan is written for you. So if there is something in this plan at any point in time that you see, you're like, man, this just really doesn't make sense. We want to know, because we're writing this for you and for your VFD, as well as like your tribal and all of the other entities to be able to seek funding to implement what we're identifying. Collaboration, these are all of the contributing entities that provided input and helped create this document. The community profile includes the 2020 census data and an overview of critical facilities, seasonal factors that contribute to wildland fire risk to your area, as well as the brief wildland fire history. And then we get into the meat and bones of it. Back to Jenny for the community risk assessment.
All right, before we dive into the community risk assessment, I just want to reiterate that a lot of time and efforts has gone into the sections that Emily just kind of did a brief walkthrough on, but it is still in the draft phase. So we're trying to make ourselves available for multiple different ways for you to provide feedback should you take the document home and see something where there's a discrepancy in some sort of information, or you have some more detailed information you can provide, and that can be amended in the CWPP at this point. Does anyone have any questions up to this point? And that includes that would include any questions or comments from our online viewers. Okay, we'll go ahead and keep diving in. So right now in the CWPP, I'm on page 14 and page 15 of it. We're going to look at the rating element we're used to create the community risk assessment. And just want to reiterate that we were looking for a standardized, data-driven assessment in the creation of this. So on page 15, the elements that were used were a risk and hazard analysis of fuels inside of the community, which included up to 1 mile. Risk and hazard analysis of fuels outside of the community, which included up to 10 miles. Both the human and natural barriers that surround the community, fire protection resource availability, a community firewise rating, and then that brings us to our overall community rating. So I am going to reference another section of the CWPP. It's Appendix A, which basically gives the criteria for these elements. So that's on page 27. So the first two elements were the fuels within the community and then up to 10 miles outside of the community. And this is the rating criteria involves the vegetative fuels and their potential fire danger or flammability, which is also reflected in the map when the prime fire conditions are present. The fuel models that are used that are showing high, so I'm referencing chart 1 basically, and these are the same fuel models that we use in basically predicting fire behavior for planning in wildland fire. Is black spruce boreal forest spruce model, black spruce lichen woodland model, and dry and cured grass. Now these all have a fire rating of high, and on your map those fuels show up in the color coding of red. More moderate fuels include what is called a mixed boreal forest, which is a spruce and hardwood mixed forest and a hardwood forest. The leaf trees have a little less fire susceptibility than the deciduous or the needle trees. Of a lower fire potential, are the brush components such as willow, alder, and the alpine and subalpine vegetative components. And then the final thing on here is any sort of diseased or spruce bark beetle affected trees, and that would show as a more moderate hazard. So I'm going back now to the community risk assessment, and we're going to look at the first two components, the first one being fuels inside of the community. On page 16 now, and we're going to go over these findings in a little more detail. So the rating given for fuels inside the community was high. Times that are outlined as highest concerns are during spring and pre-green up conditions when tall, thick, and often matted grass are prevalent. They're in our road corridors. They're around many of our structures. They're very receptive to fire and they carry fire very rapidly. So this was a big concern that we found. Additionally, things leading to those concerns are a sort of hazmat component that's present in some areas of debris or trash, inoperable vehicles, or structures that present extra challenges to first responders should they catch fire. We also know that there's a very high wind component here in Chitina. The winds funnel through the canyon. They can often be erratic and unpredictable and provoke that same type of fire behavior. And then another concern, in addition to the fuels, is what are potential causes for a fire. And within the community, the main concern is human-caused fires. Some things that could cause human-caused fires are the use of unsafe use of burn barrels, unsafe debris burning, in addition to a large influx of recreational users that come to the Chitina area for fishing and other recreational activities. Along with this, there's concerns of camping in non-designated spots, which is very common, and the potential of people having unsafe campfires or even leaving their campfires unattended or not fully extinguishing those. Specifically within the Chitina area, areas to the northwest and southwest consist primarily of spruce and a spruce mixed hardwood forest with pockets of beetle kill. So some of those areas that are of concern are down O'Brien Creek Road. There's heavily forested land, there's continuous fuels, and there's not really any fire break from the O'Brien Creek corridor coming up to behind where this village location is located right here. Another area that has a higher rate of fuel consistency is around some of the airport infrastructure. And additionally, this is a highly used recreational area by fish wheels, which again could inadvertently start a fire and affect the infrastructure in that area. Another area that was identified was sort of to the southwest of where Town Lake is, where there's more continuous fuels in that area. And then, of course, just reiterating the grass in the spring before the spring green up period is being a major concern within the community. Does anyone have any comments on the concerns of the fuels and the potential fire ignition sources outside of what we kind of just went over? Okay, we'll move on to number 2, which is the analysis of the fuels 1 to 10 miles outside of the community. This also received a rating of high. Again, the majority of the fuel surrounding the area consists of a spruce, a black spruce, white spruce, or the spruce hardwood mix forest intersected with some beetle kill trees. Specific areas are on the northern edge of the boundary where the Tonsina River corridor is, and again, leading over towards where the Liberty Falls is, and the airport. And then on the east side of the Copper River, the Katsina Bluff, and the fuel concentration as we head into the Strelna area. There's pretty continuous fuels over in that area. So again, this rating for the community was given a high. We're going to take a look at the barriers now, which is actually a beneficial. This is one thing that Chitina does have going for it. I'm going to reference the appendix again and the rating criteria, just so everybody understands how we got to the rating of moderate. All right, so page 28, number 3, the rating criteria for barriers, which is listed as number 3. So for an area to be given a rating of low fire danger, it would need to have either a natural or a man-made constructed barrier in at least 3 cardinal directions. A moderate fire danger rating would constitute a barrier in two cardinal directions, and anything that received a high fire danger rating would be a barrier in fewer than 2 cardinal directions. Chitina has the Copper River to the east, and any fire that large scale fire that could potentially start on the Katsina Bluff or in the forested fields that lie towards Strelna, the Copper River would provide a pretty decent barrier, although nothing's ever 100%, but a pretty decent barrier from a fire in that area spreading across the river closer to the community. To the directions of the west and the southwest, right in the community, that's excluding the O'Brien Creek corridor, there's high elevation terrain, which consists more of that subalpine and alpine vegetative component, which is less flammable, and then ultimately it goes into rock. So that provides protection in those 2 directions from a large scale fire. Again, it doesn't really provide protection for anything right inside the community. There, within the Chitina planning area, there are some other features. There's water features and there's rock features that can be found, which can provide an anchor point or access for firefighters and firefighting resources to gauge a fire, and they may serve to lessen fire intensity, but utilizing those, it's hit or miss depending on the location of the fire, and don't necessarily protect the identified values at risk within the infrastructure. Additionally, previous fuel reduction efforts have been done in the community, but they do need to be retreated. One disadvantage of when you do removal of trees and vegetation is that it's going to grow back in something, and sometimes it's to your benefit and sometimes it's to your not to your benefit. A lot of times things grow back in willows, and that is more of it suppresses, they will still burn, but it's not as flammable, and it provides moose browse. However, what's grown back in Chitina in a lot of the areas that have either been cleared or at one time treated is the dry grass component that we were talking about. That is really a major issue that we'll need to address. Any comments or questions up to this point?
Yes, Chitina, we are going to be going after some hazardous fuel reduction grants through forestry and Department of Homeland Security this coming fall. We were really just waiting for this plan, and now we have this plan, we can start working at at doing the fire breaks and doing some hazardous fuel reduction work in the Chitina area. And we're also looking at some other projects with the state of Alaska along the same lines.
Yeah, that's great to hear, Dean. And, additionally, before this gets finalized, we want to get together with you to just further dive into hashing out some of those details. Right now, some of the suggested mitigation measures are written sort of in a blanket form, and that helps support funding for anything that you want to do. But any things that you have specific plans on, we'll want to capture in this as well. So we'll be looking to have more interaction with you after you get a chance to look this over.
That would be great. I'll shoot you guys some emails.
Yeah, we'll be in touch for sure. The next section or rating criteria we're going to go over is number 4. It's the fire protection resource availability. Chitina has a rating of high for this, which the criteria, if you were to go back to that Appendix A, says anything with a high rating has initial attack resources are more than 75 minutes away, and adequate extended attack resources are more than 12 hours away. As far as the Division of Forestry response time goes, we can get here with our ground resources from where our station's located in Taslina in 60 plus minutes, and a helicopter can get here in 30 minutes. Additional resources are going to take a longer amount of time. If anybody doesn't know, the Division of Forestry and Fire Protection has a statutory authority to protect all forested lands within the wildland from wildland fire on state, private, and Bureau lands. And we also have contractual agreements with the BLM Fire Service to provide protection on federal jurisdiction and native lands. Additionally, what would really be beneficial here is bolstering the Chitina Volunteer Fire Department, because when we talk about all the potential causes of human caused fires right within the community corridor, well, almost all of those could be addressed by community members with the proper training and resources available. And so, that's a big detail that's pointed out in the CWPP. There is both the Kenny Lake Volunteer Fire Department is available for assisted response, and in the summertime, the Strelna Volunteer Fire Department is available for any sort of wildland fire response. But again, there's still a time delay on them getting here. So with resources within the community, having access to water and the necessary tools and equipment to help lessen the impact of fire within the least amount of time is really going to be the most beneficial thing for the community. And then another consideration for there too, that maybe the Chitina Traditional Native Council would want to look into grants as well for things like water wagons with pump pressurized water and that sort of thing, so that again, just there's some sort of resources available to suppress a fire while it's still small. Another thing that did come up, 2 other things actually within this category of fire protection resource availability was 1, due to the terrain, radio communications here are almost non-existent. And 2, access to water, at least from my knowledge, is only from surface water sources, which is certainly, there certainly are surface water sources available, but access to a well would, community well or a public well would also be helpful. and then kind of circling back around to the Chitina Volunteer Fire Department. Getting access with MATCOM 911 to receive notifications would and opening up communication with other cooperators would also be a helpful thing. Does anyone have any comments on this section? Hey Jeff, there's folders on the tables with CWPPs in them.
Well, actually, I'll throw a comment out though.
Okay, we got you might want to.
Oh, why? So I'm Jeff. I'm Jeff Ramsdell. Jeff Ramsdell. I'm the.
Gotta hold it.
All right. So my name's Jeff Ramsdell. I'm the fire chief for Kenny Lake VFD. I spoke with Beth the other day. Yeah, figured that was you now. Now that I see it. We are going to talk and try to get a mutual aid agreement or something in there, training, equipment, whatever we can provide from our end, because we come down no matter what, to help you guys. But it takes us, 45 minutes even from our area with a tender, and we have no problem coming. My guys, if you guys had equipment down here where we could hop in POV and come on down and grab your stuff and go, that would be awesome. So we are currently in the process of starting some discussions here on how we can help you better train, and better equipment. So I set this down then.
Yeah, I mean, you forgot to hold it to your mouth, but we'll forgive you.
And we appreciate Jeff's input because again, for this plan to be successful, it's going to take everyone's input and everyone's buy-in and everyone to help out where they can with reducing the risk of fires within the community. So the last rating category in the community risk assessment is a community firewise rating. Again, I'm going to reference the Appendix A because this has all the criteria on how we come up with what that end rating is. So that's on page 30. The different things that were assessed in this was landscaping around structures, various construction guidelines, water supply guidelines, and access guidelines. And anything that where less than 35% of the homes fall, or when less than 35 of the homes don't meet the criteria, then we fall into the high rating. So for landscaping, we found that less than 35% of the homes in the community buildings have clearing of flammable vegetation at least 30 feet around the structure, or have lawns that are mowed or regularly watered. Ladder fuels are present and can be found throughout the community and in between structures with pockets of trees lacking crown spacing. So the significance, or what a ladder fuel means to us, is fire is a lot more attackable or suppressible while it's on the ground. When the trees have limbs that come all the way down to the ground, up into the trees, and then touch other trees, fire on the ground can climb up those trees and spread from tree to tree, which makes it a lot harder to suppress and can spread a lot quicker. So eliminating those ladder fuels or limbing the trees up to about 6 feet or so is a standard to eliminate fire on the ground from climbing the trees. And then thinning the trees. We're not saying you have to remove all your trees, but thinning the clumps of trees to the more desirable species of trees, and so that the branches aren't all touching each other, where it can basically create a ball of fire that's going to be hard to put out. Again, we brought up the tall, dry, matted, uncut grass around the road corridors and around structures is a huge concern. And then dealing with some of the hazmat that can be found around structures is also a huge concern because it limits the access of firefighters safely attacking a fire. If there's risk of injury or hazardous smoke that would provide an extra risk to us, we cannot always take that risk. Construction, sometimes this is referred to as home hardening. Our findings were that less than 35% of the homes in the community have made of a fire resistant or non-combustible construction material. The roofing materials do range from metal, which has good fire resistance, as do shingles when they're kept clean, but to wood shake, which of course is fire susceptible. Many of the structures do not have skirting around the bottoms, which means that a fire on the ground can blow debris under those structures and therefore ignite the structure. Other home hardening recommendations include covering vents, again, to keep embers from flying into, say, like a vent in your attic or your soffit and catching your house on fire. Cleaning the debris off your roofs, any place where there's needles or other organic debris, and like a place where your roof joints come together, or if around by gutters and that sort of thing. Embers can fall on that, catch your house on fire. Same thing if you have steps, porches, and that sort of thing. So those are some of the things that are inclusive in home hardening. Water supply. Our findings were that less than 35% of the homes do not have a reliable water supply or the means to protect their property with water in event of a wildland fire. And the Chitina VFD relies on surface water sources year-round, due to not having a community designated well. The last thing is access. We all know that the only large 2-lane road coming into the community is the Edgerton Highway. We found that, the other roads are not labeled. Most of them are not labeled. They're not necessarily suitable for large fire apparatus to proceed down. Many of the homes don't have ample turnaround spaces for large fire apparatus. And then, of course, there's always concerns with persistent landslides within, the Copper Basin and Bluff area roads that these roads can become hampered for even allowing both, escape if necessary or allowing resources in. We did outline some escape routes and safety zones. For the village area where we're located now, the only escape route would be the village road to access this area. And then the Edgerton Highway is one option for the Chitina community to exit if there's danger in the area, to get away from that danger. An option is to go on the Edgerton Highway towards the Tonsina River or Kenny Lake direction, or to go on the McCarthy Highway further out to the east. Potential safety zones in the community that people could go to should a fire be basically impacting the area is the Katsina floodplain, which is accessed on the McCarthy Road, would be a safe place to go in event of a large scale fire. The Copper River floodplain accessed by O'Brien Creek Road, and the Chitina airstrip area, which is accessed at mile 28 of the Edgerton Highway. The problem with these safety zones is they don't have any kind of infrastructure there. I mean, they can get you away from burning vegetation, but ideal safety zones would be a building that people could take, shelter in with water and that sort of thing. Any comments on this section?
For those of you that are online, my computer is going to restart itself. I'm just going to manually restart it right now so we can move on. So you're going to lose my screen for just a second, but you will still be connected through another person in the room's computer. So hang tight.
Sorry. Technology.
Love the timing.
Hey,
Okay, so we're about an hour in, and we're actually doing pretty good on the pacing of what we're looking to accomplish.
can you hear me all? Can you guys hear me? All right.
Yeah, I got you, Mike. Go ahead.
Hey, just a couple things. There is a community well at the old Chitina Fire Hall. I'll have to check into the status of that. But that used to be a thing. And then additionally, the Chitina Volunteer Fire Department is no longer registered with the state fire marshal's office. So that's something that they probably need to do if we're gonna do a mutual aid agreement between adjacent departments.
Okay, thanks for that input. We do have the registration with the fire department is noted in the CWPP, and Beth Kelly, who's here representing the fire department, said that well at the original Chitina Fire Hall is no longer serviceable. So that's still a concern.
And okay, copy that. I just don't know. I don't understand. I don't know why. And so maybe somebody there that's in the audience knows a little better to the local issue. But it doesn't need to be potable water for, fire protection services. So I don't know if it was an issue of testing or if it's an issue of functionality. I'm just ignorant there, but there is an existing well there.
Because the ground sank and it's unstable ground. It's just unstable ground.
I'm not sure if you were able to hear or not from the audience because we're actually utilizing a microphone. Apparently it hasn't been operational for about 10 years. The ground's unstable and it sank. It is one of the things that later, as we outline the action plan, it's listed in there. So hopefully one way or another, different options can be looked at for addressing it. I'm going to turn everyone's attention to 19, which is page 19. It basically is the overall rating chart for Chitina. So we just went over all the rating criteria and the areas that were rated, and all of them were high except for the natural barriers around Chitina, which was given a rating of moderate. Say the overall rating for Chitina, right now the CWPP says currently moderate to high, but it's probably leaning more towards the high side of things. Additionally, there is a online resource. I don't know. Emily was going to show it. You have your computer up? Yep. It's wildfirerisk.org. It's a federal website that provides resources. We're just going to share this really quick, and then we're not going to spend much time, but again, it's a resource people can look at. I'll let Emily just give a quick recap of it and what it shows as a rating for Chitina on this website. And again, it's another area to find information and resources.
Okay, so wildfirerisk.org. Let me just pull it up again right here. So this is a free and easy to use website. It has interactive maps, charts, and resources to help communities understand, explore, and reduce wildfire risk. So we did use this as part of our component for the risk assessment for the community. And it's just as easy as clicking on explore, typing in your community. There we go. They give two different, they have the tribal area as well as the community. We're going to look at the community as a whole. And then there's just a brief little description. So Chitina has a very high risk of wildfire, higher than 90% of communities in the United States. And if you click on high, it gives you the percentile for low, medium, and high. And again, this is just a great resource. Oh, I'm being flagged out.
You're not sharing right now. So.
Not that screen.
Not that screen.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. This is a great resource for you to use. Get familiar with it. Again, you can access all of this information by going onto our website and searching for it under the tab of Chitina.
So the final thing is taking all the findings from the community risk assessment, and what we did is we developed a prioritized assessment list of the findings. You can find it on page 20 in your CWPP. It was pretty easy to prioritize the first 4 or 5 of the findings on things that addressing immediately would really help do a lot in the community. I would just put in a little disclaimer though, that it's hard to prioritize 17 different things. And really what it comes down to is any entity or any resources that are available to accomplish any of these things will have a positive effect in the community. I am going to go ahead and read what these findings are. And then what was done with these findings is they were put into a tasks and matrix chart, basically, of mitigation efforts or mitigation measures. And the idea was to take that assessment finding, write down what some of the potential steps or associated tasks are to accomplish that, and then potentially suggest responsible entities or put from entities that might be able to help address some of these concerns. The first finding that we came up with was the dry grass, eliminating the dry grass, especially around structures during the pre-green up season. The second finding was homes and businesses not being fire-wised. Number 3, the long response time for first responders, which leads into number 4, addressing VFD training needs and VFD needs in general. After that, the driveways being inaccessible to emergency vehicles, in addition to not having clear road signage. Updating an evacuation plan for the area would be helpful. Number 8, addressing unsafe burning practices. And number 9, providing public wildland fire education in the area. Concern number 10 was the lack of the subsurface water source, followed by lack of adequate radio communications. Fuel treatments are basically next. These fuel treatments we didn't go down. We have some ideas, of course, on where fuel treatments would be very beneficial to providing protection to infrastructure in the community. And the one mentioned in here is south of the Chitina community, specifically protecting this village site area, but there's really more than just that. So basically what, fuel treatments in general. protection of native heritage sites. Then we had, as I was just talking about, identifying other fuel reduction projects, supporting a local fuels crew, potentially putting in a Chitina weather station to really track the localized weather conditions that the area is receiving here. And then potentially something that could help eliminate people burning yard debris, woody debris on their own property would be a community woody mass disposal site. This is one of the biggest things that we are looking for input on. Input would be anything that we didn't identify in these prior assessment findings. And also potentially rearranging the priorities of those things as it's applicable. And I'm gonna there's a lot of ways you can provide us input. You can talk to us tonight in person. You can write us a note. We provided all our contact information, so you can call us anytime during business hours. And if there's a cell phone listed on the cards that we have up by the signing, call the cell phone, not the general office number. And then one of the biggest tools, though, that we have is the survey on the website. And so Emily's going to show you that right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenny. Yeah, and I think something else that's really important to point out about the action plan is, yes, we have suggested broad range ideas that can be implemented for this community. They are not down to the nuts and bolts, who's going to do what, how we're going to do it, where exactly it's going to go. That comes at the next planning phase. So don't be freaked out if you see, like the shaded fuel break south of Chitina. Don't be freaked out by that, because we are not in the planning phase yet. So we're not here to talk about we're doing a fuel break. We're talking about this is where it would be the most beneficial for the community of Chitina. So yeah.
And I think it's important to say that the reason that these to the T, dotted I's, crossed T's of this planning does not need to be figured out right at this instant is because this document provides the justification for grant funding for any of the things that are listed in here. So and that's why in some ways it's more beneficial to leave basically, well-placed fuel treatments might be better than saying, oh, there needs to be a fuel treatment at X, Y, and Z. That can happen when land managers get together and again review, the data in here and read through the lines and recognize, yes, we know that's where the fuel treatment needs to go. But providing, these umbrella ideas for fuels mitigation and support of the VFD and fire safety education can, again, like I said, all provides a justification to apply for a variety of both state and federal grants to help support these projects.
Thank you for clarifying. All right, so for those of you that are online, again, if you go to our website, go to the Chitina tab, scroll down, and those of you that are in person too, because this is how you are going to give us your feedback. So just scroll down. You're going to get to the please take our survey online. And then it's going to, boom, take you to our survey. And it's really just as simple as providing us feedback on what you think about it. So you have our prioritized assessment findings. There's a box there for you to provide feedback. Again, questions 2 through 4 are screenshots of the action plan itself. Question 5, just keep scrolling through it. Question 5 is going to be where you provide your feedback. So again, it's really important that we hear from you. This is your CWPP. We are writing it for you, and we need your input and able to make this possible. We also have on the insert of your folders, there's a little like a business card looking thing, and it has our QR code. You can also just take your phone out, pull up your camera, scan the QR code, boom, it's going to take you right to our survey.
Also, the survey that Emily just showed you is pretty much specifically geared in the questions towards the action plan and the prioritized assessment findings, but really any feedback, if you were to go on there, any feedback at all, that you can put in the comment sections if you have something, that is a way for us to get it.
We're gonna read everything you submit, so.
Yeah, and we really want that because this is, you know, pretty much it's almost finalized state. Going back to the tasks and matrix of mitigation measures, you know, we'll be getting together more with, like, say, Dean and other traditional Native council members and seeing, you know, where they think that they potentially want to be plugged into these areas, other agencies, and of course, our own division is doing everything we can to help the community meet the things that are addressed in here. I'm gonna just, before we start to wrap it up, see if Mike Trimmer, if you have anything else you want to add on that, or anybody else online.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. Appreciate you and Emily and your efforts there. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else in here have anything they need to add? Okay, so moving on to the summary review and updating process. So we do this document, like it was done in 2007, and then we haven't heard anything about it or seen anything since a lot of these actions were implemented back in 2007 and 8. So this document needs to be reviewed every 3 years. So there's a handy dandy little insert there with a graph. So that's December 1st, 2028. It needs to be updated. So what Jenny and I are just doing right now, this needs to be reviewed and updated within the next 5 years. By 2030, this whole document needs to be redone again, identifying new projects, retreating identified action plan items that are spelled out into this plan. They need to be retreated and or added to new other plans. This document will expire in 10 years. No funding will be able to be sought after to implement what's identified in this with an expired CWPP, which is exactly why we are updating it to make your community safer in the event of large-scale wildfire and for your communities to seek funding to implement what needs to be done. And with that, if nobody has anything else, that will conclude our meeting for this evening. Does anyone online have anything they would like to add?
Yes, this is Ben. I just want to say thank you very much. I really appreciate the comprehensive overview. And yeah, just said I appreciate the efforts that you all are putting into this. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just echo what Ben said, and also I talked to Chris Fryer, he's the representative for BIA, and he regrets that he couldn't be on here tonight, but he's going to listen in on the recording. So I know he's been engaged with the Chitina Village, and looking forward to whatever the BIA can do on his end to support the priority projects defined through this planning document. Thank you, Emily.
Does anyone in person have anything they'd like to add?
Thank you, Emily. This is Dean Barlow. Yeah, we'll need to meet again. We are getting into new fields of work in Chitina right now. So we were just awarded, we're one of 7 tribes in Alaska awarded a tribal climate resiliency grant. So we're gearing our environmental work into climate control, climate resiliency in our area. So maybe I'm not positive on how that will could tie into your program, but that's something that we can talk about. And resiliency. And then we have a couple other new grants that we are working with scattered sites right now too. So we are looking at putting in a new community water well in Chitina, but we're only year one into that project, and usually it's from start to finish. The scattered sites people say are estimated usually 1 to 6 years. And so we're still a number of years away from that water source right now.
That's awesome news. Yeah, that's definitely something that's high on our list for action items that need to happen really across the whole Copper River Basin. There are a lot of communities that people drive a long way just to get water. Subsurface water, I should say. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for attending both in person and online. We greatly appreciate your time and we look forward to showing you our final product.
Thanks, everybody.
Sarah?